Welcome, listeners, to today's episode of the Black Business Roundtable. I am your host, Doug Blackshear, broadcasting to you live from the City of Diversity, Oakland, California. Due to prior commitments, our show today is going to be 1 hour, but don't fret. We have a great show lined up for you today. See the post on my Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn, our online show description to see the Tuskegee Airmen mural just completed of Major Jewel B. Butler, the late uncle to friend of the show and one of the original co-hosts of the Black Business Roundtable, my brother and warrior fighting for social justice in the military against racism, Everett Butler. The dedication will be in Denison, Texas on March 26 at 1 p.m. He was among the first Black pilots in World War II, as was another member or the same family, Mr. Eddie B. Butler. Thank you, Everett Butler and family of this for this wonderful tribute to share. We really appreciate it. Everett, we see why you're so great because you come from greatness. And audience, let me be clear. We all come from greatness. We just need to be great. Stay tuned for a scholarship application opportunity later in the show. And I have an announcement. And, audience, we continuously commend Magnolia Engineering and Construction under the leadership, the presidency of Tammy Willis, President and CEO of Magnolia Engineering and Construction. On April 2nd, President of the Women's Council of the Associated Real Property Brokers, Tammy Willis, they're having an annual prayer breakfast, and it's going to be featuring Shonda Scott, a well-known local, state, and national lady who has definitely made an impact to increasing the opportunities in the Black community. She's going to be the mistress of ceremony, Pastor Maria Reams, Center of Hope Community Church. She will be our the Women's Council guest speaker. I have to let you know, audience, I've adopted Tammy and all these organizations. So when I say our, because we are a family. And until we start acting more like ownership and pushing and motivating and not like crabs in a bucket, we won't make it. So once again, congratulations to Tammy Willis for putting off a wonderful, wonderful women's prayer breakfast that is designed to generate revenue for scholarships for Black and brown boys and girls going to college. And expensive as college is now, they need to generate as much money as they can. Starting this week, we will begin a segment called Political Corner. Just a few minutes to know who is and who is not, locally and nationally, honoring their commitments to work for their constituents. And I'm going to sidebar, Dr. Ashley. This week and last week, I've had several conversations with some of our local political politicians who have been elected, and I have told them, you are on notice. And let me take my glasses off and be clear. You are on notice. If you do not start representing your constituents instead of yourself, I will be highlighting that with the proof. Moving forward, this week my comments are regarding the mayor of Oakland, Libby Schaaf, and the Oakland City Council, which includes the following members: Dan Cobb, District Number 1, Nikki Fortune Bass, District Number 2, Carol Fife, and a friend of the show, District number 3. Shang Tao, District number 4. Noel Guile, District number 5. Lauren Taylor, District number 6. Treva Reeds, District number 7. And last but not least, and a friend of the Black Business Roundtable, Rebecca Kaplan, council member and vice mayor for the city of Oakland, and she's council member at large. The Oakland City Council has the power to refuse and to wield that power for the betterment of the community which they represent. So once again, City Council of Oakland, California, and Mayor Libby Schaaf, you are on notice from Doug Blackshear and the Black Business Roundtable. Dr. Ashley, I'm going to take ownership of this one because as I drive around Oakland and see all the trash and debris and the homelessness, and then on the other side, I see all these people who are working in the city of Oakland on these government contracts that are federally funded dollars. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 requires that any city, entity, or government agency who receives federal dollars have to be inclusive of all people. We also continue to ask for your social media support and share these hashtags. Stop School Bullying Crane County, Texas, and that's TX 2022. I'm going to read that again. Stop School Bullying Crane County, TX 2022. Driving While Black, Michael Thrash, Taylor County, TX. Now, Texas, you need to clean your act up because you have a few things going on, and these are the ones that I'm reporting. Attach our podcast link from 10/14/2021, listed once again in today's podcast description. For Michael Thrash's story, take action on your social media, click the hashtag, and tag us too. Thank you, audience. Today's show highlights. Tonight, we discuss politics, have some mental health check-in time, and talk with network founder and BlackUSA.News to discuss Black Wall Street Southwest and the 10th anniversary. Our guests today include I'm working on that, Dr. Ashley, our very own, because girl, you know you're mine, but I'm going to say I got to share you, our very own past immediate president, department chair, assistant professor of psychology at University of the West. Welcome, Dr. Ashley Coleman.
Thank you, Doug. So happy to be here with you as always.
Well, let me be clear, Dr. Ashley. When you can't make it to the show, and something happens, whatever, if you see my number pop up on your phone, please answer, because without your mental therapy, let me be clear, I wouldn't be as strong as I am. So thank you for that weekly dose of mental therapy. Audience, don't be proud, be strong, and strong in your mind. Thank you, Dr. Ashley.
Thank you.
Mr. Donnie Glover, the entrepreneur and founder of our network, BlackUSA.News, is going to be special guest today. And I believe this is the first time he's been on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And he's doing a Black Wall Street in Washington, D.C. And thank you, Donnie, for choosing to make time so that our audience can see you and how you are impacting not only the East Coast, but now the West Coast. Janani Ramachandran Esquire, will return in April. She is running for District 4 in Oakland, California. See Janani at Janani, her website at Janani4, and that's FOR, Oakland.com. And new Instagram at Janani, and that's the numeral 4, Oakland. Now, for the national political highlight. Our guest from February 24th, Marcus Flowers. He's a brother, a proud Army veteran, husband, father, and patriot of this country. He is a Georgia Democrat running for Congress to unseat. Keep contributing, audience, so he can continue to out fundraise Marjorie Taylor Greene. And those of you who follow politics, and I'm hoping it's all of you, but those of you who do follow politics, pull up Marjorie Taylor Greene and see some of the unintelligent things that she's saying down there in Georgia. Learn more on Instagram at Marcus4, and that's the numeral 4, Georgia. Or his new yard sign are ready for District 14 resident, and that's in Georgia. Phone bank events and new office opening is Saturday, March 19th in Rome, Georgia. Hashtag One Georgia. And that's a great hashtag. Congratulations, Marcus. We on the Black Business Roundtable, we got your back, brother. Go down there and make a difference and continue to improve the quality of life in Georgia. Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock is a Democrat who helped flip Georgia blue, along with Senator John Ossoff, is running again for his U.S. Senate. For the U.S. Senate. He is a pastor, advocate, Savannah born and raised, and Morehouse College alumni. Learn more on Instagram at Raphael Warnock or website Warnock4, and that's FOR, Georgia.com. Hashtag One Georgia. Man, that seems to be a consistent hashtag down there. And you know, audience, I want to take a quick break and say that's how this country should be. We're one country. We're the United States of America. And emphasis on united. Stacey Abrams, a Democrat and a woman of color, is running to unseat Republican Brian Kemp for governor of Georgia. Learn more on Instagram at Stacey Abrams or website StaceyAbrams.com. And once again, hashtag One Georgia. You know, once you Stacey, Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock, and soon-to-be Congressman Marcus Flowers, we're going to spread that one for Georgia and say one for America. That would be a great hashtag. One for America. Val Demings, a Democrat, is running for 2022 Florida Senate seat. A woman of color and former Orlando police chief is seeking to unseat little Marco Rubio in Florida, who is a Republican. Now, little Marco, pack your little bags, put those little Kid March tennis shoes on, and scurry on up out of there. I love saying that. Dr. That's therapy in itself for me. Her hashtag, never tire. Learn more on Instagram at Val Demings or her website, valdemings.com. Now, for the news of today. Dr. Ashley, please take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug, and greetings to our listeners. I can talk about this news of the day with my eyes closed because it's something that I talk about with my students. And so on this day, March 17th, 1851, pro-slavery doctor claims enslaved people's desire to be free is, quote, a curable mental disease. And so one of the classes that I've been privileged to teach is psychopathology. And psychopathology is the study of mental illness. And I have been tasked to train the next generation of clinicians on how to diagnose mental illness ethically and with cultural competence, meaning having evidence to support the one's hypotheses, testing that out, discussing that with the client, getting feedback. And so it's a collaborative process, but that's not the history of psychology. So Dr. Samuel Cartwright, and it's very hard in this moment to refer to him as Dr. Samuel Cartwright, actually believed that enslaved African Americans that wanted to be free suffered from, and I quote, drapetomania. And that's something, Doug, that I talked about when I was a guest panelist last May 2021 on the podcast. And so drapetomania, again, he said was curable. So drapetomania being technically the first mental illness coined in the field of psychology. This is why we need more than 2% of APA, of 2% of psychologists are African American. We need more. But he believed that this could be cured. He came out of the Louisiana State Medical Convention, again, a pro-slavery advocate. And he claimed that African Americans physiologically had smaller brains, more sensitive skin, and overdeveloped nervous systems, thus making them different than white people, and that these unique physiological traits actually gave Black people an especially high propensity for servitude. Citing scientific evidence and scripture, Dr. Cartwright argued that, quote, the Negro is a slave by nature and can never be happy in any other conditions. I'm going to pause here. Again, want to give credit to the Equal Justice Initiative, and I want to invite our listeners to look at the daily calendar. But something that I want to be very clear about, even though I am a psychologist, I do understand medical mistrust. And I do understand how racism and racists have used science to further some very controversial, but again, have used science as a weapon. And that is why we call it medical mistrust. So not paranoia, but medical mistrust is having a healthy suspicion of medical providers and asking questions. Doug.
And that you are 199.99999% right. But not only do they use science, but they try to use the Bible, passages in the Bible.
Yes.
So I want our audience to understand it's science and the Bible. So thank you. And thank you. I wasn't, but I used to watch and read books about slavery and how the slave masters would sit up and read passages in the Bible, that only passages that would strengthen the power structure of white people. And that was wrong. So thank you, Dr.
No problem. And so again, Dr. Cartwright he invented the term drapetomania and said it derived from the Greek words for runaway slave and crazy, and said that Black people were struck with an urge to flee bondage and seek freedom due to enslavers who unwisely treated enslaved people as their equals. And such treatment, he recommended treatment such as severe whipping and amputation of the toes. When do I bring this up? So on the first day of psychopathology class, I usually go over the syllabus. I talk about the textbooks, what we're going to learn. I bring up drapetomania, ask my students if they've heard of the term. Typically they have not. I explain Dr. Cartwright, and then I smile as I remind my students that in Dr. Cartwright's wildest dreams or nightmares, he never anticipated having a Dr. Coleman teaching this class. And so it's a wonderful opportunity every spring when I teach the class to remind people of the responsibility when we're discussing mental illness, and that diagnosing and developing treatment planning is a collaborative process.
Excellent point, Doctor. And my conclusion is I conclude the same thing that you just concluded. So our conclusions are conclusive. Oh, audience, as you can see, Dr. Ashley and can you imagine us with a couple of cocktails? We'll be up all night just chopping it up. But
so slices coming. Right?
But Dr. Ashley, and as you can see, we are way ahead on time. Mm-hmm. These are the types of conversations that all people should be having, and specifically Black people, understanding not only the physical chains that bond you, but understanding the mental. Because if you don't understand what the mental chains are, you are still bonded in your mind. You are still a slave. Would that be a fair assessment, Dr. Coleman?
And just, I think, recognizing when someone is trying to box you in, right? So also giving yourself permission to challenge what's being fed to you.
Before you get into your weekly therapy message, audience, let me be perfectly clear, and I don't even have to read this. After meeting with several council people in the city of Oakland, I have concluded that some of them do not have your best interest and they're playing with your mind. One of the biggest things that I'm going to say, Dr. Ashley, before you move forward with your mental therapy, and I need it. Audience, don't believe what they say. Watch what they do. And I'm going to give you one example. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, John F. Kennedy, it states, using federal dollars on projects in your city, county, and state must be fairly distributed to all people. Oakland, California has a $500 million budget, which includes Department of Transportation and federal dollars. And I go back to Mayor Libby Schaaf of Oakland, California, went to Washington, D.C. to meet with Vice President Kamala Harris to get hundreds of millions of dollars for the Fisher family to build a Disneyland park and hotels. And what that would do is put ILWU Local 10 membership, which is 74% African American, out of work. Shame on you, Mayor Libby Schaaf. Second, you need to start supporting the African American Sports and Entertainment Group to be the first Black group to own an NFL team and a women's basketball team in the United States of America. Let that be your legacy, not you making a billionaire more billion. Thank you. Dr. Ashley, I get so emotional about that, Next up, our weekly check-in with with our very own Dr. Ashley Coleman, Doctor of Psychology. Dr. Ashley, please take it away. Thank you.
No, thank you. And again, I see a comment here, so I just want to say the term again, drapetomania, right? Which is the fear of enslaved people wanting freedom. And that was coined by Dr. Samuel Cartwright. So again, greeting listeners, welcome to Women's History Month and just thinking about mental health. And again, Doug, as always, I appreciate you being such an advocate for mental health and sharing how it's positively impacted you. And I too have my squeeze ball. I want to talk to the ladies and I want to talk about briefly the connection between physical and mental health, and also speak to specifically our African-American listeners for some parts. But One, there are some distinct differences in mental health experiences for women and men. What do I mean by that? The warning signs can look different. So, one, we always want to check our hormone levels, right? So, checking thyroid can be very helpful to rule out the presence of that can mimic symptoms of depression. So, anytime you always want to rule out just hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism. So, either a hyperactive thyroid again, or a limited active or underactive thyroid. So we want to check out thyroid. In addition to that, for the women, premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So hormonal changes around the time of menstrual cycle, perinatal depression, right? So that can be immediately preceding birth or immediately following birth, right? So we're hearing a lot more about postpartum depression, the weeks immediately following birth, but we also want to highlight perinatal depression, which can occur in the weeks preceding birth. Also, around menopause, there can be not just physical changes, but also psychological changes as well. So, we're talking about mood swings, right? Either if you're noticing that you're sad, feeling hopeless, or irritable. Appetite changes. So, these are just warning signs in general around health. Anytime the appetite either increases or decreases significantly, energy levels increasing or decreasing, sleep. Big, big, big one. Changes in sleep. Even when you're getting a lot of number of hours of sleep, still not feeling rejuvenated, waking throughout the night, nightmares, or any types of flashbacks, right? So we want to also just encourage people to check in with body tension. We see also for individuals that may have chronic physical conditions, noticing stress levels may impact those autoimmune disorders. So, getting that checked. How are you handling your stress can also help. But now I want to turn our attention to some of the statistics that impact Black people in general, and again, can impact Black women. So, we've talked about racism, racial stress. We're still, I call this season 3 of the pandemic, but we've just hit the 2-year anniversary mark and it's still going. And so here's some statistics to keep in mind. So currently the U.S. population, of that population, 13.4% identify as African American. Of those, 16% report having symptoms of a mental illness in the past year, right? However, when we look at access to healthcare, one of the biggest barriers is stigma. In addition to that, for some reason, we're still having this historically disproportionate diagnosing of schizophrenia, impacting, and that diagnosis being assigned to Black people in general more than than other racial counterparts, or even Black men and Black women more. So that, and the reason why I'm saying this, Doug, is because historically schizophrenia has been a label that then has really prevented people to develop a thriving life. That is not the case anymore, but it's added to some of that medical mistrust and misdiagnosis and medication. So it's really important when someone is going to the doctor or meeting with a therapist that you come in with a checklist of observations of things that you know that have changed in you, a timeline, but also come in with a checklist or of events to remind your provider, no, I remember a time when I could bend over without pain. I remember a time when I would enjoy spending time with my family or enjoying my hobbies. So giving your provider a timeline, and so that they can see changes and being able to be clear. And also, even some providers may disagree with me at this point. It's fine. I encourage people to look up symptoms of mental illness so that you're familiar, not so that you're diagnosing yourself, but visiting the American Psychological Association's website to get a sense of just changes. Doug?
I have to just give me 30 seconds. I have to piggyback off of that. Audience, when you go to your doctor, and you want them to diagnose what is wrong with you, you have to be 100% forthcoming. Now, I have this episode of Sopranos that I love. And the way I love how he went in there and talked to his therapist. He was open to a point because he was doing criminal activity. But audience, let's be clear. If you want to get the full 100% effect of 100% mental health, vitality, and get well, you must tell your therapist everything that's going wrong. Can you elaborate on that, Dr. Ashley?
Yes, I'll conclude. Thank you for saying that. And I used to love enjoying Sopranos with Tony and Dr. Melfi. Everything you say in therapy is confidential. Your provider cannot confirm or deny that they have ever met you. They cannot speak about you without your written permission. And there are just some small times when, some special conditions, I should say, rather, when we are ethically and mandated to breach confidentiality, and one would be notified of that. But yes, let us know what's going on, wrong and right. Because also an assessment involves what's going well, so we can continue to get that behavior happening. And so just making a plug, please go get checked. Please know that your therapist is there to help you. If for some reason it's not a good fit, advocate for yourself and find a better fit. That's why we have so many therapists. We understand fit and safety and trust are of the utmost. And so again, therapyforblackgrowth.com. I know we've made this plug, Therapy for Black Men, Association for, Black Psychologists. There are many ways to find therapists that are a good fit for you. So I will leave that there, since Doug, we have so much to get to today, and a very special guest. So I will just make our announcement again to our listeners about the scholarship opportunity. So the Black Business Roundtable wants to remind our audience about the scholarship being offered by Gamma Phi Delta Sorority Incorporated, founded in 1943, Gamma Chi Chapter in the San Francisco Bay Area. Watch our February 24th episode featuring Mr. Marcus Flowers, running for Congress in the 14th District of Georgia. And again, listen for the scholarship email address to request your application. The closing date is mid-April, so please hurry.
Now that we're back on time, let's welcome Donnie Glover, founder of our network, BlackUSA.news. Dr. Ashley, please read this magnificent human being's bio. Thank you.
Absolutely. Donnie Morton Glover, a Baltimore native, is the very fine founder of DMG Global, DM Global Marketing and Public Relations, the super proud creator of our www.bemorenews.com. Be More News is the award-winning site that features video interviews and photos along with stories of the Black experience in America. He also launched BlackUSA.news in December of 2020. At DM Global, we underpromise but over-deliver, globally speaking. Jordan, Tanzania, Italy, Ethiopia, Jamaica, Canada, China, New York, Washington, D.C., East and West Baltimore. So as we get ready just to anticipate his arrival, Doug, what a full circle moment.
Audience, and is he backstage yet?
I think we're awaiting his arrival, since he's coming. He'll be broadcasting from a special location and event.
Well, let me tell you something, audience. You are in for a treat tonight. Even though we are doing half the time, but we are maximizing that time with introduction on the first time on the Black Business Roundtable, Donnie Glover, who is back in Washington, D.C. to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Black Wall Street. And audience, let's be clear here. Wells Fargo has been highlighted as not allowing Black homeowners 50% denial to refinance their house. This flies directly in the face of generational wealth. And let me put it in perspective. And since Donnie's not backstage, let me get a little emotional about this. And I don't have to read this. If I'm a Black person and I have a house that's worth $500,000, but the bank only will not let me refinance it or bring the interest rate down, I can lose tens of thousands of dollars over the 15 to 30-year life of that loan. So let me say that again for the hearing impaired. And for the banks, whether it be Wells Fargo, and you caught Wells Fargo, so own it, Bank of America, Chase, or any of you other white-owned banks, you must stop these bad practices that kills generational wealth in the Black community and the Black family. You ought to be shame of yourself. Dr. Ashley, would you like to elaborate on how this mentally affects a Black man, a Black woman, a Black mother, a Black father, a Black grandparent, that they can't transfer that generational wealth to their kids like white America does, or Chinese, Asian people, or Hispanic people? That plays a significant role in the deterioration of the economics in the Black community. Thank you, Dr. Ashley.
Well, sure. And just kind of in the theme of the show, thinking of the Dr. Cartwrights who thought it was a sin and an illness for African people to want freedom. We have hopes and dreams and goals. And so not only does it impact the parents that want to develop a legacy of generational wealth and pass things down, it also impacts the adult children, the millennials like myself who want to be homeowners and who did what their parents said to do and went to school and jumped through these hoops and persevered and overachieved, and then are not having the same opportunities to get the same type of interest rates and loans and approvals and these things. And so it sets up, it's kind of almost as if every generation or every other generation we're starting over.
White America, if you're listening, that is critical. When you devalue a home because it's owned by a Black person. And I hope that Wells Fargo clean up their act and goes back and start trying to address this heinous crime. And yes, it's a crime. It's a crime to destroy, to deteriorate the Black economic and the Black community, furthering and continuing Blacks being on the bottom of economics, not only in the city of Oakland, California, the county of California, the state of California, and the United States of America. Shame on you, Wells Fargo, but you can fix it. I have faith in you. Dr. Ashley, did I miss anything?
No, I think you're doing well. You're doing
okay. Well, I want to make sure, because I have Everett Butler, when he came on back in, I think it was April, and he was working with us, he recited numbers of how and examples of how a white appraiser would come in and devalue a Black homeowner's home, but then the Black woman got her white friend, changed the pictures around, and the same well, I won't say the same appraiser. Let me rephrase that. Another white appraiser valued $100,000+ more onto the value of that home. That is disgraceful. And I hope you presidents of these huge banks, Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citibank, I hope you start looking at what your employees are doing and not doing. Did we have Donnie? Has he come on? Has he? Because I know he's hosting the show back in Washington, D.C., folks.
Mm-hmm.
Has he come on yet? No, not yet.
No, not yet. Not yet.
Okay. Well, let's keep the ball rolling. Audience, look behind me. Right above, oh, wrong hand. Right above my head. Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce. We have Black chambers all across the United States. I humbly ask for you business owners, and you don't even have to be a business owner to join your Black chambers in the areas that you live. Commerce without money is like a car with no gas. Once again, commerce without money is like a car with no gas. I'm putting out a nationwide call for all Black business and white business. The chamber will allow white members too. So, if you white, don't think that we don't want your green. But if you own a business and you are Black, please join your Chamber of Commerce. And Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce has been a beacon in the city of Oakland for helping to train, develop, network Black businesses to be a part of what we're going to make a thriving city here in Oakland, California, as it relates to Black economic, Black business, and to strengthen the labor. And I use labor because we had Trent Willis. Now, I got to do this, Dr. Ashley. Trent Willis, the brother who shut down the Pacific coast of the, I say that because if more people would stand up for wrongdoing and run for, and I say this all the time, run for mayor, run for city council, run for your board, your county board supervisors, run for Congress, whether it be your state Senate or United States Senate, run for Congress, whether it be your state Congress and representative or your United States Congress representative. But run, and your school board. Now, you can elaborate on this, Dr. Ashley. Being on the school board, and Dr. Ashley, you are way more endowed and intelligent on academic than I am. How important is it for our school board to not be ushering out books that outline Black heroes and sheroes, but how some states across this country have ushered in books and ushered out books that can harm or help the Black community? And can you tell our audience the psychological effect of a Black young person not understanding their history? Thank you, Dr. Ashley. I'll turn it over.
Yes, I will. And then I'll take also this question that came up. But before I answer that question, Doug, I also want to acknowledge one of our teammates from BlackUSA.news in the comments, Michael Haynie, and his comment about intentional gentrification, devaluation of homes so that they can buy up our real estate. And his mentioning that Wells Fargo should have been criminally charged years ago. However, the government just assigns them meaningless fines. So we just want to acknowledge your comment, Michael Haynie, and thank you for tuning in. Again, more with him on Sundays at 60 Minutes and BlackUSA, but just want to acknowledge our network teammate. And children learning and reading and learning stories that are culturally relevant. We know that they can draw children in first and reading about things that speak to them. Representation matters, and that's not just a slogan. It's important for children of the African diaspora to see themselves represented positively. Uh-oh.
We got the big boss on the line. Ashley, I don't know. I never cut you off, but do you mind if I cut you off and let Donnie Glover, the mastermind behind the Be More News and BlackUSA.news. Donnie Glover, welcome to our show, and you are part of the hour. Sir, go ahead.
Hi, Dr. Ashley. How are you?
I'm well. Hi, Donnie. So good to see you.
It's always a pleasure. Dr. Ashley, we gotta get your picture out front more. We're always seeing Doug's picture out front. We want to see you. I'd much rather look at you.
So charming, Donnie. You better stop it.
So we just left Southeast Washington, D.C. I don't know if you know, that's where Marion Barry and Ward 7, Ward 8, that was Marion Barry country.
Oh, yeah.
So we had a Black Wall Street ceremony over at the P.D. Green Center.
Mm-hmm.
What was the name of the movie? Talk to me. I'm here with Dave Lovelace.
My brother Dave, what's going on, man? I love your show, brother.
Yes.
Man, I'm driving. Doing well. He said he's doing well. But I don't know if you saw the movie Talk to Me with P.D. Green, but he was a very famous Washington, D.C. radio announcer. A lot of people knew P.D. Green, WOL. Well, anyway, we had a Black Wall Street ceremony at the P.D. Green Center, and some really powerful community advocates were honored. We celebrate Black entrepreneurs and professionals, as well as the people who support them regardless of race. BeMoreNews.com has been doing these awards for the past 11 years. We've recognized over 1,800 individuals in New York, including Manhattan, Harlem, and Brooklyn, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Richmond, Atlanta, New Orleans, Miami, Tulsa, Vegas. We'll be coming to the West Coast. Of course, we coming to Oakland. Got to come to Oakland.
Well, let me be clear here. When you get to Oakland, we'll be ready for you, and we're going to try to have coordinated so Dr. Ashley can come down, and we could go down and visit Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce, the Commerce Chamber, the Chamber of Commerce that has allowed me to get my start, introduce you and I, and the rest is history. We have to network. I don't know if you saw the show last week, but we had Tajmir on here, and we had a dynamite time, Donnie. Oh, it was amazing. Oh, it was amazing. So we look forward for you coming here to Oakland, California, and we're going to get you over to Soul Slice. Uh-oh, I think he froze up.
I'm probably just hitting the traffic on the 495. Those are my old stomping grounds. Donnie has to bring me some cocoa bread from DC when he comes to visit.
Dr. Ashley, doing an hour now, that seems like I can do that with my eyes closed. We're working with less than 11 minutes. And since Donnie is frozen on screen, audience, let's be perfectly clear. The BlackUSA.news network give you the real news, and BlackUSA. Black News and United States of America. I say this respectfully, and I say it humbly. White media does not portray Black people and always the best life. They want to show where we selling drugs, pants sagging, rapping music, and a bunch of negative visual. Malcolm X said over 50 years ago that media can take an innocent person and make them look guilty, and a guilty person and make them look innocent. And Dr. Ashley, we want to elaborate on that since we are working with less than, that's scary now. I'm like, man, well, now I see why we have a 2-hour show. I have so much to say, but don't have any more time to say it. Go ahead, Dr. Ashley.
No, I just defer, and you're absolutely right. Media is so powerful, and what a privilege it is to be able to have a platform where the news can be centered from a strength-based perspective. And even when we're being critical and encouraging our listeners to make changes, is coming from a place of wanting growth and development, and us also bringing our own personal and professional experiences to the table. I just briefly, too, just want to acknowledge this question. There is a very, very powerful commercial that this listener is referencing. There's a Black woman and a white man on television, and they both have the same job description. They have the same results, and they're line by line, they're taking turns mirroring each other's experience. And at the end, the white man concludes that he makes 18% more than the Black woman. And they get up and they walk off the stage. It's a very, very powerful commercial, again, about inequitable pay and closing the pay gap. And that's been discussed in relation to genders. Also, when we're talking about intersections of identity, race, sex, gender, like all different aspects, it's very demoralizing when you show up to work and you put your all on the line and you don't believe that you're receiving the compensation that you're due. And then to see a counterpart, again, have certain privileges, it's very demoralizing. But specifically in the African-American community, where we're still trying to get to a place of having 2-parent households in whatever type of constellation that is, when at times for Black women, they are the head of the household. We know about the generations and systematic efforts to remove Black men from households. I already know, don't at me in my comments because I already know, brothers, and we could talk about all the things that the government, I'm very aware of that. However, let's talk about what's happening for those of us who are 40 and under. And when I talk to Black women between the ages of 30 and 40, they talk about the aspects of not just wanting to secure their own households, but there are some adult children that are also contributing to caring for others, whether it's children or supporting parents. And so this wealth gap is not just, it impacts generations. So again, it can be demoralizing in the Black community. We also have the imposter syndrome that I see that's very high, where people feel as though they're not qualified for the positions that they actually are not just qualified for, but exceed expectations. And it can set off this cycle of fear failure. So much there. Morale drops and anxiety creeps in. So definitely, if you haven't seen that commercial, please look it up.
Thank you, Dr. Ashley. And now we are working with 6 minutes left. I have to do this before we end the show. City of Oakland, California, elected politician. I'm going to give you one more shout out so that you know that you have been warned. Starting this week, we will begin a segment called The Political Corner. Just a few minutes to note who is and is not, and nationally honoring their commitment to work for their constituents. This week, my comments are regarding Mayor of Oakland, Libby Schaaf, and the Oakland City Council, which includes the following members, 8 members: Dan Cobb, District 1, Nikki Fortuna Bass, District 2, friend of the show, Carol Fife, District 3, Xing Tao, District 4, Noel Gaio, District 5, Lauren Taylor, District 6, Treva Reeds, District 7, and friend of the show, Rebecca Kaplan, Vice Mayor and Council Member at Large. The Oakland City Council has power, but refuse to wield that power for the betterment of the community which they represent. Dr. Ashley, can you finish up the last acknowledgement, and I'll close this out. But I want our audience to start looking and seeing what your city council is and is not doing. Thank you, Dr. Ashley.
Absolutely. I want to, again, special shout out to Donnie Glover. Donnie, thank you so much for taking time out this evening to come and speak to us. And again, want to invite our listeners to tune into the programming on BlackUSA.news. Thank you to our current sponsors, Soul Slice Restaurant and Catering, available www.soulslice.com with Chef Carter Lewis, as well as Tammy Willis, owner of Magnolia Engineering and Construction. Find out more about the company by visiting its website, magnoliaengineeringandconstruction.com. To join our BBRT advertising family or to be a possible guest on the show, reach out to us via our email address, bbrt2021 at hotmail.com. And if you'd like to be share more information about your company, enclose those details in the emails. And then I'll just also acknowledge just the shows on the network: Chap Friends on Mondays, Marty, Let's Talk on Tuesdays, BlackUSA Crypto News with Kamal Hubbard on Fridays, and again, 60 Minutes in BlackUSA with Michael Haynie. We had Tajmir on last week. Her show is on Saturdays mornings at 7:15 a.m. West Coast time, and 10:15 East Coast time. She was such a breath of fresh air last week, and look forward to having more collaboration. Had Brother Kamal on the show. So great things happening on the network. Back to you, Doug.
And working with 2.5 minutes, girl. Audience, the person you don't see who helped us put the script together, because Dr. Ashley and myself, we do not get paid for this. We do this because we are concerned about our cities, our county, our state, and our country. We do this as a message for mental, and I'm going to do both hands now, mental strength. Mm-hmm. If you do not have the mental capacity to win, no matter how strong you are physically, you will lose. Now, special prop out to Tammy Willis, new incoming president for the Women's Council of the Associated Real Property Broker, president and CEO of Magnolia Engineering and Construction, auditor for BART, Bay Area Rapid Transportation, and also she sits on the board of the Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce as the treasurer. Tammy, you keep rising, because when Maya Angelou said, "And still I rise," you were in the back of her mind. Congratulations, Tammy Willis. Audience, as we conclude tonight, thank you for tuning in, and remember, together we can listen, we can learn, and we can share, because I know you care. This is Doug Blackshear and Dr. Ashley Coleman of the Black Business Roundtable. God bless. Good night. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.